What's up, Met fans? Welcome back to Talking Mets with Rob. How is everybody doing? Before I get started talking about the series preview, 4-game set with the New York Mets and the Atlanta Braves at Citi Field, don't forget, guys, if you enjoyed this video, hit on that like button. If you enjoy my content, want to see more, want to get notified when I post my videos and when I go live, you guys know what to do. Hit on that subscribe button, everybody. Alrighty, guys, so today starts the 4-game series, the New York Mets and the Atlanta Braves. The Atlanta Braves are 17-9, 2-game lead over the 15-11 New York Mets. And this series is the first series of the year between the NL East rivals. And it is interesting to look at when the pitching matchups very favorably favor the Atlanta Braves. And obviously, you got to play on the field and see what happens. But the pitching matchups do favor the Atlanta Braves by a large margin, to be honest with you. We will look through the pitching matchups for the next 4 days, and we will also go over what are the keys to the New York Mets' success in this series against the Atlanta Braves. So we are going to start first with the pitching matchups for the New York Mets and the Atlanta Braves. We are going to start first with today's matchup, 7 p.m. tonight on Friday. Max Fried against David Peterson, both left-handed pitchers on the mound for their respective teams. Max Fried has been absolutely dominant this year with his 0.60 ERA this year, 1-0 on the season. And the Mets' David Peterson with a 7.36 ERA, 1-3 record. Obviously, the pitching matchup highly favors the Atlanta Braves. Max Fried has been excellent this year. He's been striking out a ton, and he has gone long in games. That is something that the New York Mets pitching has not done this year, except Joey Lucchesi. And David Peterson cannot get out of his own way, walking too many batters, giving up a ton of home runs. And with this Atlanta Braves lineup, you have to be very careful. So tonight's matchup, Max Fried, David Peterson, battle of the left-handed pitchers. Max Fried, 0.60 ERA, and Peterson, 7.36 ERA. So that matchup definitely favors the Atlanta Braves. Going to Saturday, April 29th, 4 p.m. time of game. Spencer Strider, who has been excellent this year for the Atlanta Braves, faces Tyler McGill, who's been probably one of, if not the best pitcher for the New York Mets so far this year, and that is not a lot to say with the Scherzer and Verlander not being in this rotation for the majority of the year. McGill has been the best starter for the Mets, minus Joey Lucchesi, and Tyler McGill finally had a bad out in his last time out, but Tyler McGill is one of those guys that fights through a lot of games, and this will not be easy for the Atlanta Braves with Tyler McGill. But once again, Spencer Strider, with his 1.80 ERA and a 3-0 record, and leads the league in strikeouts this year, definitely, once again, favors the Atlanta Braves in this pitching matchup. But Tyler McGill will have something to say about that. He is a guy in spots in big-time games, pitches very well as a starter, and that is something that history shows from last year he has done. So let's see if he can continue that this year against that potent Atlanta Braves lineup. And Sunday, 1:40 p.m., April 30th, Charlie Morton against Jose Butto. This one can easily go either way. Obviously, you got the veteran and Charlie Morton on Sunday, the veteran, and of course the rookie Jose Butto, who had one really good start and one really bad start. And that is something that we continue to see from Mets pitching. And Jose Butto is one of those guys that has very good stuff, but if he doesn't throw strikes, he's going to have a huge problem against the Atlanta Braves. Atlanta Braves are a strikeout team. So if you get them to strike out, they have a hard time winning ball games, and you keep them in the yard and don't give up home runs, you have a pretty good chance of beating the Braves. So Jose Butto, with his 2.79 ERA, 0-1 record against the right-handed pitcher Charlie Morton, 3-2 with a 2.76 ERA. This matchup, I'm going to call somewhat even, considering the fact that you got a rookie on the mound, Jose Butto, with a couple of starts in the big leagues, and the veteran Charlie Morton, who hasn't been the same pitcher over the last couple of years. So this matchup is going to come down to probably the bullpens. And let's be honest, guys, the bullpens for both teams over the last couple of days have not been necessarily good. And we've seen what happened with the Marlins and Braves game yesterday with Minter on the mound. And you saw with the Mets bullpen, who decided to give up a couple of leads, but the Mets prevailed and won, and the Braves lost against that Marlins game yesterday. So Charlie Morton, Jose Butto on Sunday, and to finish up the matchup for the series, Bryce Elder versus TBD. There is some speculation that it could be Max Scherzer, depending on the 10-game suspension, and it is a 10-game suspension. So that means the Mets have to play 10 games for Scherzer to fulfill that 10-game suspension. So if there is any rainouts over the next couple of days, Max Scherzer will not be able to pitch on May 1st on Monday for that 1 p.m. start. So it's definitely going to be Bryce Elder for the Braves, right-handed pitcher, 2-0 with a 2.17 ERA. Starters for the Braves have been extremely good, and you're going to see it in this series. See if the Mets lineup can do what they do best, and is take pitches, lower those strikeouts, and get on base, and that can increase the pitch count of their starters. So if Scherzer does pitch, we'll be very interested to see his first time out in 10 days, 11 days basically, to be on the mound for the Mets to end the series. And depending on how the series looks, it might be in a very important situation for Scherzer to be on the mound that day. But again, weather permitting, if that 10 games does not add up because of a rainout, or that they have to play another day, that is 10 games, and that would not count towards the suspension for Max Scherzer. So once again, guys, we got Max Fried versus David Peterson, Spencer Strider versus Tyler McGill, Charlie Morton versus Jose Butto, and Bryce Elder versus, to be determined, possibly Max Scherzer on Monday. So with that said, guys, the pitching matchup obviously favors the Atlanta Braves, and the Mets are going to have to hope that David Peterson finds it enough and keeps that ball in the yard, because he does have strikeout stuff. But if he does not throw strikes and does not keep the ball in the yard, it's going to be very hard to beat the Atlanta Braves. Again, the MO of the Atlanta Braves, it's been like this for the last couple of years, including this year. You keep them in the ballpark, you have a pretty good chance of beating them. They are a strikeout team, and for the most part, a home run hitting team. They are a very good team. We all know that. There is no mistake in that. The pitching matchup clearly favors the Atlanta Braves. The lineup, if you look at it on paper, clearly favors the Atlanta Braves. But the Mets, 4.5 runs per game this year, if their pitching shows up just enough, they could win ball games in this series. And the Mets are only 2 games out of first place. I know we're not looking at the standings as of yet, but I think it's hard to fathom that Braves fans and Met fans can agree on one thing, that one of these two teams are probably going to win a division. Philly has been struggling for the first month of the season. I know they made the World Series last year, but if you're looking at the team itself and how they're performing this year, the Phillies don't look up to par just yet. The missing of Rhys Hoskins for the year, Bryce Harper might be coming back, but other things that have been hurting the Phillies that could favor the Braves and the Mets. At the moment, the Braves and the Mets are the teams that are going to be fighting for the NL East at this moment. And this series will be telling more for the Mets than it is the Atlanta Braves. The Mets need to prove to their fans and prove to themselves that they can be on par with the Atlanta Braves. And listen, 4 out of our 5 pitchers in the rotation are not in the rotation, possibly Scherzer on Monday. So if you find a way to split or take this series against the Atlanta Braves without any favorable pitching matchups in this 4-game series, that is a win for the New York Mets. So we'll see what happens. But what are the keys to the game for this series for our New York Mets? Number 1, pitch count. Got to make their pitch count, the starting pitches for the Atlanta Braves, pitch count go up. Take a lot of pitchers on-base percentage for the Mets going to be key. We saw Alonso, we saw Lindor, we saw Beatty, a couple of guys, and Marte pick it up in the last game of the series against the Nationals. So they might be getting on track offensively as they struggled the last couple of games. Nice to see them come back with some runs there. And the offense, the lineup looked very good yesterday. Yes, against the Nationals, but confidence is a big thing with this lineup. And if you're going into the lineup with a couple of guys hot, the New York Mets on-base percentage and work the pitch count of the Atlanta Braves. That is what the Mets do extremely well. They're one of the lowest strikeout teams in baseball. If they lower their strikeouts and their on-base percentage and pitch count is extremely high for these pitches, that they can get it up early and get into the Braves bullpen that has been struggling, the Mets have an extremely good chance of winning games in this series. What is the opposite of the keys to the game for the Mets? Striking out a ton. The pitching. If the Mets pitching gives up long balls to this team and strikeouts are low against this lineup, against the Braves, it's going to be a very hard time for the Mets to outscore the Braves if the pitching does not keep them in the ballpark. Keep them in the ballpark, you got a very good chance of winning against this Atlanta Braves team, even with their strong rotation at the moment. Strider, Fried, excellent. But the pitching matchups favor the Braves and not the Mets. The lineup has to come through with their 4.5 runs per game this year. They got to score runs, which I think they can do. I don't think that's going to be a problem. But if you don't hold this lineup in the ballpark, it's going to be a very rough weekend series against the Atlanta Braves. So, once again, guys, we have the pitching matchups for the next 4 days, weather permitting. Max Fried and David Peterson tonight. Tomorrow, Spencer Strider, Tyler McGill. Sunday, Charlie Morton versus Jose Butto. Monday, Bryce Elder versus possibly Max Scherzer, dependent on if the Mets play without getting rained out, and that 10-game suspension will be done for Scherzer, and he could pitch on Monday, May 1st against Bryce Elder, but is that TBD at the moment. So we will see what will happen during these next couple of games. But the pitching matchup does favor the Atlanta Braves. But what the Mets do well, lineup-wise, on base percentage, they have no problem getting on base. Run producing can be an issue, but they have scored 4.5 runs per game. We can see them getting that pitch count up because that's what they do very well against these pitchers. You get into the Braves bullpen, you got a very good chance of winning the ball game if you keep this game close in the bullpen, because at the moment, the Mets bullpen is slightly better, probably a little bit more better than the Atlanta Braves. So that's where we are right now. Tonight, 7 p.m., we got Max Fried and David Peterson on the mound. 4-game set for the Mets, for the Braves. First series of the year for this NLE showdown. Once again, guys, if you enjoyed this video, hit on that like button. If you're enjoying my content, want to see more, want to get notified when I post my videos and when I go live, you guys know what to do. Hit on that subscribe button, everybody. Let me know in the comments, guys, what do you think? Do the pitching matchups clearly favor the Atlanta Braves, or do you disagree? What about the keys to success for not just the Atlanta Braves, but for the New York Mets as well? Again, my keys to the game: working their pitch count, getting into the Braves bullpen. Strikeouts have to come down with the Mets clearly favored in the on-base percentage area. They can get on base, but can they get those runs in? That is the keys to success for the New York Mets. And one more thing, keep the ball in the yard against the Braves. You got a very good chance of winning those ball games against a very good Atlanta Braves team. With that said, guys, everybody have a great day. Thank you for watching. And as always, Met fans, let's go Mets.